Welcome to the Keiser Report. I'm Max Keiser. Because has been voted the word of the year by the American Dialect Society after the humble conjunction exploded with new grammatical possibilities in 2013. Ben Zimmer, chair of the New Words Committee of the American Dialect Society, said, "No longer does because have to be followed by of or a full clause. Now, one often sees tersely worded rationales like because science or because reasons. You might not go to a party because tired. America losing empire because lazy. J.P. Morgan paying yet another multi-billion-dollar fine because criminal. Yet another wedding party getting thrown because U.S. thug. The Department of Justice losing faith in the value of Bitcoin because concern troll. The NSA spying on every single person on Earth because, just because. Stacy.
Yes, Max. Well, we're first going to speak about this because concern troll. The Department of Justice has lost faith in the value of Bitcoin. So, you know, they hold Dread Pirate Roberts' wallet of Bitcoin worth something like 125 million pounds in total between the two. But they say that apparently the millions of dollars in Bitcoin seized by the FBI from Ross Ulbricht and the first Silk Road, currently stored in a set of online wallets, appears to be on the move. A source in the U.S. Justice Department said that authorities have access to the Ulbricht Bitcoin cache and may be selling it off for less volatile currencies in the next few weeks.
This is exactly how they run Fed policy, isn't it? They don't actually, first of all, they're not going to sell it, or they do sell it. I'm a buyer. I'll be willing to give them $80 million today for their Bitcoin cash. FBI, we've got the money. Be willing to cut that check today. Please contact me. We're a buyer. We'll take your Bitcoin. But you won't be selling your Bitcoin for the same reason you won't be selling any bonds over there at the Federal Reserve Bank. You talk about tapering, you talk about having a policy, but you don't actually do anything. This is the Fed's equivalent of tapering. We're going to taper our Bitcoin position. We're going to unwind our Bitcoin position. No, it's not going to happen. If it does, it's like Gordon Brown selling all of Britain's gold, or 60% of Britain's gold at the worst price in decades. If the FBI decides to sell at this ridiculously low price Bitcoin in the $900 to $1,000 level, I'm a buyer, FBI. 80 million, write you a check today. We'll take every single Bitcoin you got.
Well, I think they're because concern trolling as well, as they're just concern trolling because there could be a currency war. Some rumors are that China and the U.S. government are actually acquiring Bitcoin as part of their currency war against each other. So it could be concern trolling China. This we don't know. But the other thing is they give away something in this next quote. The reason for selling is that the government has lost faith in the value of Bitcoin and does not want to deal with the volatility of the currency. If they've lost faith, it presumably means they also had faith at one point.
Well, they never had faith in Bitcoin. There's some stories circulating right now that the U.S. is waking up to the fact that the dollar is threatened by Bitcoin. The dollar is threatened by cryptocurrencies. The dollar is threatened by the fact that China is buying Bitcoin. So the government of the United States is actually looking to buy Bitcoin. And this idea that they're selling Bitcoin is a lie, of course, another big lie, because they need the Bitcoin to offset what China is doing, and China is acquiring Bitcoin. This is part of the currency war. This is the chapter that Jim Rickards failed to cover in Currency War, or his new book, The Death of Money, I think it's called. There's no chapter on Bitcoin in that book either, Jim. The currency war includes Bitcoin, Jim. Are you listening?
Well, it's another thing is because exorbitant privilege. You mentioned that, and this is in this headline regarding Bitcoin. Congressional report warns of potential Bitcoin threat to U.S. dollar. A congressional report quietly released last month suggests that Bitcoin could be a threat to U.S. monetary policy and makes the case for continued central banking control. The report, called Bitcoin Questions, Answers, and Analysis of Legal Issues, was published by the Congressional Research Service. And they warned that it could be a case where Bitcoin does threaten the viability of the U.S. dollar. This is a report written by Congress for Congress.
It does threaten the primacy of the U.S. dollar and the Federal Reserve Bank, just like P2P file swapping destroyed the recording industry. And the RIAA and the MPAA had to resort to suing their own customers, or in the case of Aaron Swartz, hounding a guy till he killed himself. This will be their only recourse, is to threaten jail, long-term prison for people who use Bitcoin. But if the cat's out of the bag, people are already on the crypto freight train, and they're moving away from the dollar. They're moving away from central banking. They're moving toward freedom. Freedom!
Because Bitcoin better, Bitcoin better.
because of all the fabulous things you do, bobbity bibbity boop, they're off to see the wizard, the wonderful wizard of Bitcoin, Satoshi Nakamoto, created something that'll kill stupid, fraudulent central banks and all the people in Europe like the ECB and the Bank of England and Mark Carney. You're all toast because of betterment.
Now, we mentioned at the top of the show that the FBI holds all of these Bitcoin wallets of the Dread Pirate Roberts, i.e. Ross Ulbricht, and they're in the headline here. FBI admits it's not really about law enforcement anymore. Ignores lots of crimes to focus on creating fake terror plots. So a couple of years ago, it was revealed that the FBI noted in one of its counterterrorism training manuals that FBI agents could, quote, bend or suspend the law and impinge upon the freedoms of others, which seems kind of odd for a government agency who claimed its primary function was law enforcement. You'd think that playing by the rules would be kind of important. However, as Judd Hudson at Foreign Policy has noted, at some point last summer, the FBI quietly changed its fact sheet so that it no longer says that law enforcement is its primary function, replacing it with national security. And here are a shot of the fact sheet before and after.
The FBI can't hold my jockstrap, much less hold Bitcoin or any sense of law-abiding protocols that would make any sense given the fact that they are deeply involved with the NSA and other organizations in mass surveillance and turning America into a police state. Look, here's the bottom line, is that the FBI, by changing their mandate from prosecuting law offenders or enforcing law to enforcing national security, quote unquote, it just means that it gives them the right to break the law for corporations. National security agenda is written by corporations. The energy policy written by energy companies. The agricultural policy written by Monsanto. The surveillance policy and prison policy written by Corrections Corps of America. So the FBI serves those corporate masters. Now they can break any frickin' law they want so that they can serve their masters under the rubric of national security, which is a frickin' joke.
That was an abrupt ending.
Because joke. Because frickin' joke. Take that, American semantic society.
Well, it's dialect society.
Your dialectic, put that up your dialectic pipe and smoke it. Because frickin' joke, FBI. Joke.
So, yes, they are now no longer enforcing the law, and we've kind of noticed that. It was brought up by some journalists over the course of the financial collapse. And here we turn to a quote about specifically the reduction in the number of FBI agents used to enforce the law against bankers. The reductions in white-collar crime investigations became obvious. Back in 2000, the FBI sent prosecutors 10,000 cases. That fell to a paltry 3,500 cases by 2005. Had the FBI continued investigating financial crimes at the same rate as it had before the terror attacks, about 2,000 more white-collar criminals would be behind bars, the report concluded.
The FBI have sent their white-collar criminal investigators to work for J.P. Morgan. Those are the people that J.P. Morgan has hired, former FBI white-collar criminal investigators, to commit fraud for J.P. Morgan, who was involved in yet another scandal, paying another huge multi-billion-dollar fine for their complicity, their engagement, and their participation in the Bernie Madoff scandal. They said, you know what, yeah, sure we launder money for drug cartel. Sure we're participating in Bernie Madoff scandal. Sure we help HSBC launder money and finance Hezbollah. It's no problem. We'll pay the $2 billion fine because we made $20 billion in profits. It's cost of doing business for us, you chumps. You FBI now works for us, helping national security, which means we just stuff our pockets with all the money that's being grabbed out of people's bank account through bail-ins, starting in Cyprus, soon to come to the UK, soon to come to America, because bail-ins.
Well, here you mentioned that the drug running and all the crime and the breaking the law repeatedly by the likes of J.P. Morgan and HSBC and Barclays and RBS and Deutsche Bank and Societe Generale, all of them, right? Well, Benefit Street Birmingham documentary criticized. So there's been this Channel 4 documentary here where they look at, in particular in the first episode, the street in Birmingham, where all these people are on benefits. And the most shocking bit, and people of the tabloid sort that would be outraged, they noticed that it featured interviews with people who admitted cultivating drugs and stealing. Just like all our banks admitted to LIBOR rigging, which is stealing, because stealing because stealing.
Look, if David Cameron is going to point to the big four banks in this country and say that they perform a vital function, that they're beyond the law, that they provide liquidity, that they're market makers, that they're funding my re-election campaign, and they are role models. If HSBC is a role model, according to David Cameron and George Osborne, Barclays, Lloyds, and RBS, if they are role models, remember RBS just caught torching small to medium enterprises and stealing assets for pennies on the dollar, according to the Tomlinson report that Vince Cable is aware of. If David Cameron's going to point to these kleptocrats, these serial lawbreakers, these larcenistic, duplicitous sociopaths, psychopaths, and say those are our role models in society, then he can't blame the people in Birmingham from living up and acting out as David Cameron's role models. If David Cameron's role model was the Pope or somebody else, then the people in Birmingham might choose to act differently. But since David Cameron puts his arm around HSBC, who's funding Hezbollah, who's got suicide bombers killing people on a daily basis, there's David Cameron. I love suicide bombers. Let's kill everybody. I'm David Cameron. I love Hezbollah. I love HSBC. And then he goes to Birmingham and says, don't steal that pack of chewing gum. Go to jail, young man. What a putz! Because Cameron's a putz! He's got to be the worst prime minister in 100 years.
Well, finally, somebody sent in a tweet. This is Sick Britain 1, and they sent in their own version. Banker Benefit Street coming soon. Of course, as we know, because steal, because crooks, because criminals, because Cameron lets them, because...
Because we got to go.
Okay, because bye.
Stay tuned for the second half, because Kim Dotcom.
If you've got nothing and you got no opportunity, what do? You start to construct your own culture and society.
Kids don't want to be bad. Kids don't want to be gangsters. They don't want to be drug dealers. They don't want that, but with an alternative they have. A kid can't be what he can't see.
You can just make $100 in like 4 or 5 hours in the hood and have an AK assault rifle, 30-round clip.
Yeah, AK-47 like, about like that, the bullet about this big. I don't want to die. Like, I just really do not want to die at a young age.
Millions around the globe struggle with hunger each day. What if someone offers a lifetime food supply, no charge?
We in the church have taken a very strong position against GMO, and we think that these genetically modified products are a risk to health.
There is no evidence that there's any problem with genetic engineering.
Would you make a deal? Or is free cheese always in a mousetrap?
I don't believe that just for forever free. Their primary motive is profit, not for humanity, not for social justice.
Golden Rice on RT.
Dramas that can't be ignored. Stories others refuse to notice. Faces changing the world right now. A full picture of today's news. Live, on demand, from around the globe. Rockley.tv.
Welcome back to the Keiser Report. Time now to go to New Zealand and talk with the man who needs no introduction, Kim Dotcom. Kim, welcome to the Keiser Report.
Hello, Max. Nice to meet you.
Are you getting a massage there? It looks like you're in an interesting position, Kim.
I'm in my work bed, so this is where I check my emails and stuff.
Okay, fair enough. All right, now, Kim Dotcom, you rang in the new year with a tweet that said, let's encrypt the internet in 2014. What have you got cooking?
Well, Mega is all about secure communications and secure file transfers because, as we all know, the NSA and their Five Eyes partners are spying on us everywhere. So Mega allows people to use encryption without having to know much about encryption. It's all happening in the browser. You can securely upload your files into the cloud. You can securely communicate. We are working on a Skype-type application that will be working within the browser, fully encrypted point-to-point, so that you can keep your communications private.
All right. Now, you mentioned, we'll talk about more MegaNet in a second here, but you mentioned the NSA. And, of course, your case overlaps this incredible reveal by Edward Snowden about what the NSA has been up to, about spying on people, invading their privacy. And going back to your case, where there was a raid staged on your estate in New Zealand that was pretty much put together, you know, if you connect the dots, we can see the hand of the MPAA, the Motion Picture Association of America, Chris Dodd, who was also instrumental in, according to Aaron Schwartz's father at the funeral of Aaron Schwartz, point the finger at the U.S. government and Chris Dodd. So my point is that your new initiative here, MegaNet, seems to be responding to a market need that became suddenly visible and viable with these Edward Snowden NSA reveals. Is that the way you planned it, or are you just an excellent businessman, or what's going on there?
Well, first of all, Dodd, he is, of course, the person behind the level of aggression in my case. A former senator of 30 years, best friend of Joe Biden, who got the White House to put their full weight behind that action against me and Mega Upload. So we had a raid here with 2 helicopters, 72 armed anti-terrorist cops and attack dogs and things like that. Totally outrageous for a copyright case. But on top of this, they also used the NSA PRISM system and Spy Cloud to spy on me. And when you hear the US government apologizing every day about how this is only being used to fight terrorism, it's really quite a joke because they have used it in a copyright case for Hollywood.
It seems like you're doing a lot of things and talking about a lot of things now that we first got wind of from the EFF, John Perry Barlow, and Professor Lawrence Lessig, who of course worked with Aaron Schwartz. Just out of curiosity, have you been, since your business now is so much been involved now with the copyright freedom movement and the movement to no longer extend copyright and to repeal copyright law, have you been in touch with the EFF? Have you been in touch with Professor Lawrence Lessig at all? Just quickly, I'm just curious if you guys have had any contact at all.
Well, the EFF is part in our case. They're actually representing a Mega Upload user who wants to have his data back, and there are millions others waiting to have their data back, and they're waiting for 2 years already. So the EFF is in our court case. Lawrence, is of course one of the key figures in the intellectual scene around internet freedom. So he's in touch with us and, is wishing us good luck. I'm not against copyright, though. I'm against copyright extremism. I think people who create something, they have a right to make money, but it shouldn't override innovation. It shouldn't override things that make society function better. And what Hollywood is trying to do is basically turn the internet into a totally censored and controlled network to their liking. And that is what I'm fighting against.
Right. To use Professor Lawrence Lessig's term, what he's fighting against is what he calls perpetual copyright. In other words, there should be a point when when intellectual property returns to the public domain from where it comes, and there needs to be some protection for that to protect the public domain. Now let's talk about how the Snowden revelations have blasted open the doors to hundreds of billions of dollars worth of deals have gone bust because corporations around the world now realize that American technology is buggy and diseased with all this spying technology. So it's as if the American technology sector is shooting itself in the head. You're in New Zealand. You have a view on Asia, where a lot of the backlash against this is. Can you fill us in? What do you see from your vantage point? Is this true, where American corporations are now losing out billions of dollars because of the overreach by the NSA? Kim?
That is a really dangerous development for the U.S. economy, because everyone is waking up to all these American tech products being backdoored and web services being Trojanized. And that is something that is going to lead to more and more countries, governments, and large corporations moving away from services that they have to deem untrustworthy. And I think, the effect that this is going to have over the next decade on the U.S. economy is going to be significant. But there's also a huge opportunity for other countries, especially smaller countries, to not enter into the TPP, but do their own thing and establish laws that are pro-innovation, pro-technology, that protect the internet, that give operators safe harbors. So there's a huge opportunity here to cut off a massive slice of the internet economy from the U.S. government.
Right, you mentioned the TPP. This is the latest trade deal. Can you talk a little bit about that for viewers who might not be familiar with it?
The TPP is basically a world domination treaty for American corporations. They want to control patents, they want to control copyright, they want to control medicine around the globe. And it's funny that the MPAA is actually drafting the paragraphs inside the TPP that have to do with copyright. And it's basically a giant wish list of US corporations, what they want to have in the global economy. And it's a very scary a treaty that I hope is never going to come to fruition.
Let's talk a little bit about MegaNet, which is something you're working on now. So how is it different than what's in use today, and what can we expect from MegaNet? Is it coming? Is it in the pipeline? Is it coming soon? Talk a little bit about MegaNet.
So MegaNet is a decentralized network that is not IP-based. So it allows you to transfer data on basically on a separate internet. It's a new internet. It's something that is outside the control of anyone who wants to control the internet. And I've been thinking about this for 2 years since the raid happened, and it's coming together. So it's going to be a very nice way for people to use a new infrastructure that doesn't come with all these hassles and privacy intrusions that we have today. The entire network will be fully encrypted, and it's going to change the world.
All right, I'm sure it will. So far, you've been very instrumental in bringing about all kinds of paradigm-shifting technologies. Is very exciting. And another development that came around during your period of becoming famous around the world, as well as Edward Snowden, we also have at the same time the breakout of cryptocurrencies. This is another interesting development in the field of encryption. I know you're very involved in encryption, and here you have Bitcoin, which is a cryptocurrency. It's an encrypted currency. We've exchanged emails a little bit about this in the past, and I want to know what your current thinking is on cryptocurrencies, and is there room for that in your plans going forward, Kim Dotcom?
Well, it's a very exciting development. It might lead to a world currency. It might lead to something that unifies the global transaction system. So, it's still in its early stages, in its infancy, and I think over the next decade, it's going to grow to become one of the most important ways to pay for things and transfer assets.
Right. So that's a bit evasive. I was hoping you might get a little bit, deeper into this in terms of on the business side of what you're doing. Do you see a role for cryptocurrencies on the business side of the Kim Dotcom ventures going forward? Because it seems to play into a theme, which is encryption. And can you give us any more thoughts on this, or are you playing it close to the vest for competitive reasons?
I'm playing it close to the chest. I have some interesting things going in that space. At Mega, we accepted Bitcoin on day one of the launch. So, I think that sent a clear message what my position is in regards to this type of currency.
Okay, now there is a cryptocurrency in New Zealand that goes by the name of Mega Coin. So for let the people know today, definitively, do you have anything to do with Mega Coin?
Nothing at all.
Okay, fair enough. Let's talk a little bit about the copyright again and file sharing, and the whole business model has been completely disrupted by developments in technology. So uploads to torrent sites were up 50% in 2013. So despite all the efforts by the MPAA, people are still going to torrent sites, and it's still transforming the industry. Are they fighting a losing battle, Chris Dodd and the MPAA, ultimately? And what are your thoughts on this?
Well, Chris Dodd is basically putting his hand into a giant river and is trying to stop it with his hand. So that's never going to happen, and it's never going to work. They are spending a lot of energy and time and money on fighting something that they can't defeat. The only way they can defeat it is by adopting to the new reality, by changing their business model to something that works and functions better with the internet. Worldwide release of content on the same day, fair pricing, the content needs to work on any device. There are so many things that Hollywood could do to improve their business model to be more compatible with the internet, but they haven't really woken up to that yet.
Right. They were very slow to embrace the videotape when it came along. Remember, they fought that tooth and nail. Eventually, it expanded their business dramatically. They weren't keen necessarily on DVDs when they came along. They're not keen on new technologies, even though in the end, they tend to expand what these companies do and their revenues.
Max, do you want to know why?
Please.
It's this fundraising model that Hollywood has. They basically have a network of 1,000 license partners around the world. So whenever they shoot a new movie, they send the script around to all these licensing partners around the world and pitch that movie to them, tell them who's the director and who are the actors, and then they are raising the majority of the money that it costs to produce the movie from foreign licensing partners. So their risk to invest into movies is very minimal, and it's basically a license to print money. But the trade-off is that these foreign license holders then own the license, and of course you can't then anymore say, well, we are doing a global release of this content, because the license holders have their own interests. They want to put it out in their market when they want to have a movie premiere, they want to have the rights for that market and control it. And that's why even if Hollywood wanted today create a website we can just go and find any movie and stream it from any country, they couldn't do it because they have created a model that made that impossible.
Right. The pre-sales model is to mitigate their risk down to zero, and the Hollywood's become overrun by hedge fund managers who are in bed with bankers, and they use the same kind of tricks in the banking over to the intellectual property. Anyway, Kim Dotcom, we're out of time, but thanks so much for being on the Keiser Report.
Very nice to be here. Thank you, Max, for having me.
And that's going to do it for this edition of the Keiser Report with me, Max Keiser, and Stacy Herbert. I'd like to thank our guest, Kim Dotcom. If you'd like to get in touch, tweet us at Keiser Report. Until next time, bye, y'all.